Remember that last chapter of Thriller Bark where the Bone Man joins and then we see the redacted whale that likes to bash his head on the red line and the old man with a large bottom lip like Bubba in Forrest Gump? I know it's hard because other than Brook joining, nothing happening and Luffy sending the zombie back home, Thriller Bark is forgettable. But I have to say that since One Piece fans get more triggered than gun owners in America, this might not resonate for most of the world. Either way, this isn't the arc's fault though. I blame Oda. Because how you give us Water 7 Peak with Usopp throwing a hissy fit and wanting to box a true god, then Zoro flexing and showing Sanji and Nami who got a bigger ego. Sanji finally telling a woman no and not being a creep, and honestly, I liked Usopp getting his ass whooped. I was just tired of that nigga lying all the time and that shit coming true. I wanted that power. To get back on track, I mentioned that to say that was the end of torture. It ended with Bink Saki and Ace's river card starting to burn, which makes me think of every time this dude Luffy was dying since the Grand Fleet. So at no point did one of these dudes on the way to the corner store went in their pocket for some change, stumbled on Luffy's card and said, hey, he might be in trouble. Let's call them. Not in Whole Cake Island when Katakuri had his trident in his appendix. Not in Wano when Kaido showed him the year his weapon was made. What about when he actually died? Not a call, a text, a Denden Mushi telegram? What the fuck is happening with this Grand Fleet? Sabaody Part 2, maybe 3 when you include the return, but that don't count. This is the remake of a top 5 arc in One Piece. But why was that arc good? It's not just about a sea raccoon that was probably more useful than Chopper. It's not about a round rainbow that led to charge for gay rights in One Piece, or even a sea snake current that only Nami and her perky chest could get us through. No, it was about the flying fish riders. And Iron Mask Duval. Do you remember how Oda hyped Duval? Looking like the great Navy Vice Admiral Bastille? He felt intimidating like Bellamy, which should have been a red flag. But when we finally see him, he was just a really ugly nigga with a vendetta. My man was chased and hunted by all 3 of the bounty hunters in One Piece because his face looked like Sanji's terrible bounty poster. But then we find out Sanji's legs were registered for plastic surgery because he turned Duval into a handsome Duval and created one of the funniest gags in the story. Duval would start to randomly assume everyone thought he was handsome. I remember when he looked at Nami after Sanji told him to get out of their face, then randomly thought she called him handsome. I loved it. It reminded me of when my 9th grade teacher used to have me stay after school for extra credit and call me handsome randomly so I would do it. Now that I think about it, it always used to just be only us. I still love you, Miss Harriet, but I don't mind gaggers. I mean gags. Some do get old over time, but this one I love. But seriously, Sabaody is hilarious and epic for so many reasons. One being the introduction of Luffy's helpers for each New World arc. I mean the supernova. Shaki being a baddie at 60 aside, I would knock that out of the park, with all due respect. She then proceeds to tell us that the guy coding the ship was 100 times stronger than these guys. At first I didn't believe her because I just assumed she was having sex with this old man, so I called Cap. You mean to tell me this random guy is stronger than Luffy and Zoro, plus that new cool looking guy with a higher bounty than Luffy? Captain Kid? Side note, I'm writing this dying of laughter at the prospect that teenage Brago had the audacity to think pre-time skip Kid was stronger than the Dark King. To be fair though, in the young man's defense, we did not know who this man was yet. I thought it was a farce like Iron Mask Duval. And I promise, I didn't trick you guys into a recap of Sabaody, but man, this arc has so many gems, I probably need to do one of these. Instead, what about Shaki telling the Straw Hats that they should be fine as long as they don't cause any trouble? She said the Navy would not send any forces, so just one thing: avoid making a scene. Somehow this is the perfect segue into Luffy punching Sharlos into the manga. And yes, by now we know the old man who codes ships is none other than the right hand of the Pirate King, Gold Roger, and that's Silver's Rayleigh. Rayleigh's intro was strange, but it was odd because Oda had basically said that Shaki was his partner. But in his introduction, Rayleigh was saying that he likes to code ships and he likes young ladies. So he was still out doing his thing. Now how young, I don't know. But if I ever found out that he was breaking Shaki's heart, I would personally go and tell Big News that he had the same disease that Roger died from. And Roger wanted his son to be Pirate King, so we can pretty much guess what disease that could be. I just want to point out how funny it is every time we have new information and going back and seeing statements and saying,
"Stop the cap."
Like Garp worrying about Rayleigh and taking out Rayleigh and Whitebeard at the same time. Now Oda is a hype man for his story, and let's be honest here, Garp is stronger than Rayleigh. And if he wanted to apprehend him, he'd probably succeed. Not without difficulty, but it's just funny after seeing what Garp can do, man. So quickly, let's recap the great things about the arc so far. Iron Mask, handsome Duval, all the supernova and Law, Rayleigh, and also Garp hype. I'd mentioned Luffy punching Sharlos because that idiot directly contradicted everything Shaki had told him to do. And now, well, the Marines have to send big shots to the island, which brings us to another great thing about the arc. tension. As scared as I was of Iron Mask Duval and the minimum starting prices for a mermaid, this was the scariest arc in One Piece for me. Bonnie was able to spare Zoro by turning into a little girl and saving that idiot, but after Charlos, they sent in the cog, a big cog if you ask me, Borsalino, inbound on a cannonball, destroying precious mangroves to his delight. This arc is also 10 times funnier because Kizaru probably knew Drake was a Marine and still kicked him into oblivion. The arc at that point felt like it had just began, but chaos was here, and who was at its center? Chibi Luffy, Captain Kidd, and Law. They were surrounded by Pacifista. Things couldn't possibly get any worse, right? But Usopp almost spoiled the entire damn story. He blatantly asked really about the One Piece. You know, at that point, I low-key wanted Usopp and Luffy to beef again just to see his ass get whooped one more time. Also, something hilarious I forgot to mention is Sengoku scolding Kuma about not bringing Luffy in from Thriller Bark, and Garp's rebuttal. Do you know what his rebuttal was? Don't worry, Sengoku. Luffy isn't gonna tell anybody he beat Moria. What? I don't know how they were friends for so long. Bro, are you serious? We just lost another warlord and him talking about it? You think that's the main issue here? It's coming together now, right? The new characters, the comedy, the danger, but it all gets turned up a notch because let's add a random guy who I thought was a woman at first, screaming that he has the best defense in the world in a dress while calling Borsalino uncle. I was confused. I didn't know how to take it all in, but man, was I hype. Kizaru, the man of the hour, went on a rampage, right? Destroying Aruge's ribs, taking out Hawking's eyes while trolling the entire time. He called him strong. It's almost like when Doflamingo saw Sanji coming at him. Called him strong, then proceeded to one-shot him. I don't know when this became a thing, but it's a thing I've known ever since I started watching anime. The one-shot. Every time a one-shot happened, it completely changed the perception of the characters. I thought highly of the character that didn't one-shot, and then I thought the other character should die for being so weak. Anyway, we'll talk about a one-shot another day. Because Kizaru even made a Pooh think he did something, then he hit him with that sweet chin music instantly. Oh, and speaking about chins, I feel like it's right to talk about X-Ray getting lit up for no reason one more time. Now we talk about disrespect, but nothing was more disrespectful than when Kizaru pulled up on the Straw Hats. He one-shot Zoro, and then he talked about it and said, you must be hurt. Imagine if Zoro was not hurt, but he just got one-shot. What do you say? Because after that, he rests his foot on him like an ottoman. Now, they were saved by the Dark King, which is dope, considering in this dark time, the Dark King pulled up to stop a light man from doing dark things. You get the point though. But Rayleigh then even copied what Shanks told Green Bull and Wano about not picking the buds before they sprout. One thing you can never say to me is that Shanks isn't an influential man. Back to the fight though. The crazy part is that Kizaru tried to completely ignore Rayleigh and go after the Straw Hats after he told him to back down. How are you ignoring the Dark King? What type of drugs are you on where you ask the Dark King to stand down? He says no, you then proceed to try to ignore him and go after the Straw Hat still. That's like my mom telling me to come get my shoes, walking in the kitchen and getting a soda. I'm asking to get slapped, and that's what Kizaru got by Rayleigh's sword. What's even funnier is Sentomaru confirming Rayleigh is the Dark King, just because no one has ever stopped Kizaru before. But thinking about what Sentomaru did back then made me chuckle. That's what Sentomaru is literally trying to do right now. Yes, he's dumb, but he has honor. It's almost like Akainu versus Jinbei at Marineford. When he told Jinbei to step aside, you fat fish, because as a warlord, you know how strong I am. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Do the warlords have to spar the admirals to get the position or something? Is that why Kuma could just intercept the Kizaru and really encounter? And something even funnier about the arc that gets lost is that Kizaru, he was so mad about not capturing the Straw Hats, he takes it out on hundreds of random pirates in the area, none being the Straw Hats, and none being a supernova. Imagine getting a call to pick up a rabid cat, causing a disturbance in a bodega. Then you pull up and it's actually a tiger loose on the streets. I wasn't equipped for this. Now with all these players in motion, with Kuma sending the Straw Hats into the time skip, the mention of Whitebeard versus the Warlords and the Marines, which confirmed Ace's fate versus Blackbeard. This arc was perfect. Comedy, setup, big names, stakes, and Iron Mask Duval. Currently, Egghead is operating on a similar scale, just with more turmoil elsewhere. Garp just lost to the Blackbeard Pirates, so just like Ace back then, with them going into an arc with Sentomaru and Kizaru. There's more turbulence ahead for the Straw Hats, or particularly Luffy, but he doesn't even know it yet. Rayleigh, while thinking about Shanks, remembered what he said about Luffy, saying the same thing Roger did. This made me think about what happened in the chapter. Luffy was sweating like Magellan 5 hours into the workday after eating Chipotle for breakfast, but Shanks was doing the same thing before he retired Eustace. Yes, guys, I've decided to start calling Kid Eustace, because he's not a captain anymore. Either way, Luffy might just be seeing the future. And Kizaru, how he operates, he likes to attack groups of people and pick them off. So like Shanks was worried about his weak-ass crewmates, Luffy might be worried about his as well. And therefore, that's why he's sweating. Not because a Marine was just in the area, but because he saw something really bad. like the Marine whooping his ass. I'm kidding, I don't think Kizaru can actually beat Luffy, but I read Marineford recently, and other than Akainu fucking spitting about Whitebeard and Ace, which honestly, if I was Ace, I'm turning back because he was making me mad while reading, because boy, he was right. Bro said, I whispered sweet nothings to Squard, and that's all it took to stab your daddy. And now he's about to die for that same idiot. Lord, I would have been a donut hole that day, because you're not going to talk about my daddy like that. I didn't like my first daddy. My second one, hands off. But other than that, Kizaru was super disrespectful to Luffy. He blitzed Luffy and he could have killed him. But you know what he did instead of that? He just kicked him back to Whitebeard like an old sock and said, here you go, wash that. He also then told Luffy he was too weak and that pride in yelling only got him so far, and that he should retire and go become a cook in the East Blue. Like Sanji. Okay, he didn't say that much, but he was talking spicy. So even though the Straw Hats seem to be in peril, Kizaru is in for a rude awakening. And I'm not talking about Gear 5 here, because just like he took turns on the Supernova, they will probably do the same to him. Listen, somebody's gonna light him up with that glove, and it can't just be the foursome, Jinbei, Sanji, Luffy, Zoro, because they can already hit him. It has to be somebody below that, and my money's on Frankie, because he seemed like he wanted some of that Lilith Robo guts, and he's trying to impress Vegapunk, so it makes sense. I mentioned Zoro getting his lick back, but man, he was clowning them all in Sabaody. So Kizaru, every monkey has his day. You had yours over 2 years ago. This time it's Luffy's turn. Get it? Yellow monkey, monkey. Either way, Sabaody part 2 or 3, however you want to look at it, is going to be one of the epic moments in the story. The narrator pretty much already told us this. Now we just got to see it play out. I did make a Zoro and Kizaru video right here. You can check it out. It's pretty good.